I had somebody accuse me, a reviewer last week, said that I was too Hobbesian.
To what?
Hobbesian. He's the philosopher famous for the statement that life is nasty, brutish, and short. And as Christians, we do acknowledge that. One of the first things we have to acknowledge is we are fallen, living in a fallen world.
Right.
It is the process of ours trying to reach up to the light of God that distinguishes us from those who do not.
Right.
It is a struggle that we go through in this world.
It's true.
And we've seen great leaders in the past try to point that way. We live in a fallen world. We live in a world with ISIS. We live in a world with a psychotic in North Korea. Now, do we stick our heads in the sand, or do we stand up and say, no, I'm going to stand for the light. I'm going to stand for the truth. Talk to the veterans we still have who liberated the camps.
That's right.
And then try and tell them that Iran is right and it never happened.
Yeah.
There is a lot of mistakes in this article about your book.
Oh, Popular Mechanics?
It's so
My
funny.
car.
This article came out a few days ago.
March 31st.
It's-
Dr. Pry and I were immediately communicating on that.
But here's what it says. I read a pre-publication copy of a book called 1 Second After. I hope it does get published. I think the American people need to read it.
That's Congressman Bartlett who chaired
Okay.
the committee.
First of all, the book was published how long ago?
2009.
This book. But anyhow, and then it says, it's the story of a ballistic missile EMP attack on our country. The weapon was launched from a ship off our shore, and then the ship was sunk so that there was no fingerprints.
It's interesting. That article is quoting an interview with Dr. Pry from Congressman Bartlett 8 years ago. And let me provide a genesis here. When I first started working on the book.
Well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Let's go there.
Wait,
Because
okay.
this is crazy.
It's crazy.
I'm trying to figure it out.
It's fake news.
It says the weapon was launched from a ship off our shore. Then the ship was sunk, so there was no fingerprints. The weapon was launched about 300 miles high over Nebraska, and it shut down our infrastructure countrywide. The story runs for a year. It is set in the hills of North Carolina. At the end of the year, 90% of our population is dead. There are 25,000 people still alive in New York City. The communities in the hills of North Carolina are more lucky. Only 80% of their population is dead at the end of the year. And then Bartlett, who was spooked by the novel, said after he left Congress, he became a survivalist. And just to be clear, the claim that North Carolina could kill 90% of the American people was directly pulled from a science fiction novel. That's not true, is it?
No, it's not true.
This, I mean,
Let me give the linear, real facts. When I first started working on the book, actually back in 2005, I spoke to Congressman Bartlett, and
did he
I
become
got,
a survivalist? I mean, is he believe in survival?
Let's put it into its context to answer that. Bartlett gives me advice, gives me the reports. I will talk to Dr. Pry, Dr. Woolsey. My reports, congressional reports come out. 2009, I gave Congressman Roscoe Bartlett 535 copies of the book. My publisher did. They were handed to every member of Congress.
Wow.
Where it wound up as door stoppers in most liberal congressional offices. Bartlett gets gerrymandered out of his district in 2012. He then moves to West Virginia, where I believe it might have been the Washington Post does a slam piece on him a year or two later, making him look like he's crazy. Where Bartlett just simply said, no, I want to retire to a farm I had up in West Virginia, and I want to be off the grid. What's wrong with that? So where I'm so angry is it's lying, it's false news. It's saying, look how foolish these people are. And I have to ask, where will that magazine editor be? Where will that author be on the day it goes down?
Yeah.
They'll most likely be protected where the rest of us who are not prepared will not. And I got to say it again, you all better be prepared. Things are not getting easier at this moment. We have to face very hard times to come, the same way Winston Churchill had to lead his people through some incredibly horrible times to make up for what was the appeasement of the previous administrations.